All right, I got Coach Tyson Chartier here on Long Island, New York. He's got Emily Ducote on the card tomorrow. Tyson, how's it feel, man? I know not you drove down as I did as well.
Yeah.
Hit some traffic. Other than that, how's the fight week been going for you?
Fight week's good. Traffic, rainstorms. I was doing like 20 miles an hour on the highway with my hazards on, so it was a little precarious. But we got here. Emily made weight. We're excited about the fight tomorrow. You know, seeing her make her UFC debut. It's long overdue.
Yeah, for sure. And I know probably when this interview's aired, she'll have already fought and
Get that win.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that next time that we speak. But I just want to talk to you kind of about some of the recent fights that you've had, especially Calvin Kattar's fight. I mean, we're a couple of weeks removed from that. I guess kind of open-ended question. Can you just kind of reflect on that one for me?
Well, yeah, it's been 5-6 weeks here. About 5 weeks, 4 weeks. He's back in the gym. You know, we're getting ready for whatever's next, and it was a tough one. You know, I think we all kind of left that night feeling like we had done enough. We were expecting to get the hand raised, and there were ways that it could have gone where I could have been okay with us not getting our hand raised, because some fights are just close, and I think depending on how you look at that fight, it was a very close fight. One of the judges had us losing the first 3 rounds and winning the fourth and the fifth. Can't really argue with that. We should have done a little bit more in the first and the second to solidify those rounds. So if you're one of the people that scored those first 3 for Josh, it's hard to argue with that. But then, when you go back and you look at the judges' scorecards and you realize, like, one of the reasons why we lost the fight was the 4th round going to Josh because Chris Lee's scorecard. That's a tough one because, you can't cry robbery on the first 3 rounds because neither side can. But I think when you look at the egregiousness of the 4th round score, it was a fairly one-sided round, not 10-8 or anything like that. But I think anybody that watches that round, there's not really a way that you can spin that Calvin didn't win the round. So I think when you look at one judge giving the round to Josh cost us the fight, that's what makes it feel like a little bit of a robbery. And I don't throw that term around lightly because, like I said, I don't think Sal D'Amato's card was a robbery. I just think it was a close fight he saw from his vantage point, and I just don't see how Chris Lee could have scored that 4th round for anyone but us. So I think that's the tough part. That's the tough pill to swallow, and especially being here in Long Island, watching, Yair and Ortega go at it, thinking like, maybe the winner of this gets a title shot. I feel like, us, had we got the decision that night, I think it puts us in a different position than Emmett's in right now, because it would have been, 2 good wins in a row after the Max fight, and I just think we're, even though we don't have the win streak that Josh has, I think we got a little bit bigger of a name, and I think maybe more belief in the fact that maybe we can beat some of these other guys, and it was just a tough one, man.
Yeah, and I think just to be totally honest here, I scored the fight for Josh, and we do a thing every time there's a close fight or debated decision on MMA Junkie called Judge is Going to Judge. 3 of us watch the fight very closely, score, sound off, whatever, just like a couple days after it happens. And it's the first time that I can remember where I scored a fight, but I also understood the vantage point of somebody claiming, I scored it for Josh, but I understood the vantage point of somebody could argue it was a robbery, not because of the decision itself, but because of the way it was actually scored. And I thought you posted something kind of interesting on Twitter about, it kind of blew my mind, and I don't know if we're even going to be able to explain it, but I'll make sure to put the tweet in this story, is like, if you were to add up all the rounds sideways, can you explain it?
So basically, if you look at each round individually,
Yeah.
we won a majority of the rounds by a majority of the judges, meaning like the first round was 3-0 Josh. Second round, we won 2-1.
Right.
So we won that round. Third round, 3-0 Josh. We lost that round. Fourth round, 2-1 us. We won that round. Fifth round, 3-0 us. So we really won the majority of the rounds. Like 2, 4, and 5, the majority of the judges saw us winning the fight. But unfortunately, that's not how you score fights. And because he had a 3-0 in the first round and a 3-0 in the second, and then that one little rogue 4th round score by Chris Lee, swang it so he won 8 rounds, we won 7, and that was the difference. But I didn't even know that was possible. I didn't know you could win a majority of the rounds by a majority of the judges but still lose a fight.
Yeah, when you posted it, I thought I was ready to tell you were wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I was trying to do math. I like that gif of Zach Galifianakis where he's got like all the math swinging around his head. That was me reading that. But it doesn't make sense, It's interesting. And I think I guess that poses the question, like for you guys. I mean, not even just specific to this fight, but are there any sort of changes you feel like that should come, or what do you feel like could? I mean, there's going to be human error no matter what, but
I think
there's a lot of debate right now.
there's a couple angles you can look at it. Is
Yeah.
like one is like criteria, scoring criteria. I think there's a lot of confusion around scoring criteria. I don't really think we can argue that much. That's up to the commissions. Like they have to figure out how do you define effective striking, effective grappling, all that stuff, and how the scores are determined and what criteria the judge is using to come to a score. But I do think a quick fix, because there is human error in judging. Like I always use this as an example in the Cheeto fight when Rob fought Cheeto. He got dropped with the hook at the end of the second round. We went past the post, so I looked up to try to see, and next thing I know, they were on the ground. I thought Rob shot. So if Calvin didn't tell me no, he got hit with a hook, I wouldn't have known he got dropped by a hook. So if I'm a judge, I got to assume that happens to them. So there is human error depending on like your vantage point and stuff like that, and obviously, bias and what angle you're at, where the fight's taking place. So there's going to be human error in judging. So I just think that, and I kind of proposed this online, is let's take some of the power out of the judge's hands. Like let's think about a majority every time, because if you think about it, a judge does have a lot of power, like to throw out 10-8s to skew a scorecard, like an egregious 10-8 can cost someone a fight when they really won the fight, 10-8 the wrong way or whatever. But so I think if you just did like a majority, each round is scored individually. Like I don't care what Chris Lee or whatever judge it is, it doesn't matter who they think won the fight, they're just scoring rounds. Because we don't ask the judges currently to say, who do you think won the fight? We ask them to score each round. They're not at the end saying, well, this is who I think won the fight. They're just saying, they just total up who won each round. So if you just take each round, all right, the first round, 2 of the judges had it for A, 1 judge had it for B, A wins. He's up 1-0. Second round, 2 judges have it for B, 1 judge has it for A, B wins. He's up. It's tied 1-1. And then the third round, let's say all 3 judges have it for B. Well, B won that round, so B wins the fight 2-1. And I think if you just look at every round, the majority wins. Because then even if you had like 2 10-8s in a round and the other guy was 10-9, well, now majority is that guy won the round 10-8, Yeah. And then maybe instead of 1 point, he gets a 1.5 or whatever, There's a lot of logistics to figure out, but I just think you're mitigating risk a little bit and adding some protection against egregious round scores. Because I think, one judge has a bad vantage point or maybe doesn't score it based on the correct criteria. You're protected by the other 2 judges, in theory, right? And I think one thing that people are arguing is there's not enough good judges, and we can't necessarily fix that right away. You can't just all of a sudden add in dozens of judges that are highly qualified. That'll take time. So I think a quick fix right now, just to protect these fighters and their purses and the integrity of the sport. I think if you just let the majority rule each round, and I think that could add a little bit of protection. And now it's not, Judge A has no say on who wins the fight. He's just scoring rounds 1 5-minute segment at a time, and if he has a crappy vantage point during a round and he's not sure where it went, but the 2 other judges are like, no, like from your vantage point you couldn't tell that this guy was getting killed. It adds a little protection to the fighter. So I think those 2 judges had a better view. They say he won. You didn't really see what was going on. Your score gets thrown out anyway. So that's just, I think, a quick fix. But I think no matter what you throw out there, people are going to say it sucks, and they're going to have a better idea. And then, a lot of people talking about open scoring. Like, I'm on the fence.
What are your thoughts on that?
I'm on the fence with it. There's pros and cons to it, but I think one thing that no one's disputing is there's a lack of good judges. No one's disputing that. Like, all these people that are going to, come out of the woodworks and, almost like protect the judges and be like, no, judging's not bad, and maybe it isn't. But even those people are saying that there's a lack of good judges. And some of these excuses are saying, it's like, yeah, but you have a Bellator that night, UFC, and then you have a bunch of local fights, there's not enough good judges. It's like, well, maybe we need more judges.
Yeah.
Like, well, how do we get more judges?
Maybe increase the pay a little.
And what they're saying is like, there's not enough good judges. If you don't go to open scoring, they're going to get such ridicule that the good judges will stop judging. Well, then maybe we're bringing a problem that's been festering to a head, and it comes to a breaking point where now we have to do something about it. Because right now, we're just in a 7-day news cycle where it's, all right, there's a robbery, what's the fight next week? Let's move on to that. And there's really no one's digging in and trying to figure out how to make the sport better. And I think, like, all of us collectively have to try to make the sport better. the Mike Rodriguez fight where he got, the DQ, or he lost, but it really should have been he won against Ed Herman. And we put up such a big stink with the Nevada State Athletic Commission, like within a week of the fight, and now there was instant replay that they already had.
Yeah.
But we just pointed out their rules to them, and we're pretty rough about it. And next week, I think it was next week or the week after, they had an instant replay all of a sudden when they didn't change any rules. All we did was... So I just think, like, little things like that can make a big impact on the sport, and I think this is another example. Like, we always talk about these robberies, we always talk about the judging, but there's really... No one's proposing any ideas on how to get it better. They're just bashing everybody else's ideas that are trying to make it better. So I think collectively we all owe it to the sport to try to figure this out, and maybe open scoring is a way to weed out the bad judges, and if that makes it so there's no more good judges, then why are we doing a sport where we have no good judges? So I think, I know I'm talking in circles here because I'm frustrated, but I just don't think the reason for not having open scoring and using the justification is, well, then the good judges will leave. Well,
yeah,
maybe they're not good judges. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean it's interesting because I think that it's good that these conversations are finally happening. I think both sides. I've said this to both people on the commission sides and the coaches, that I think and I try to take an unbiased standpoint, but I think we can all agree that having conversations about these things are positive. So hopefully, I know there's a lot of invitations going around from commissions and Mike Mazzulli saying everybody should come to the meeting. Sounds like some people are going to go to that meeting, so I'm interested to see what kind of conversations come out of it. But speaking of conversations that come out of it, out of the Calvin fight, it seems like the court of public opinion, I would say I scored it for Josh. I'm in the minority. I would say most people, fans at least on Twitter, still kind of back Calvin. So do you feel like with the question marks that were left at minimum here that maybe Calvin's stock or momentum or whatever you want to call it didn't really lose a step?
I think it was like an opportunity lost, because I do feel like there was a I don't know if we would have got the next title shot, but I think had we won, we probably had a better shot at getting the title shot than Emmett, and I think that's out of our control, but I think there was a chance that we got a title shot, especially if the winner of this fight this weekend gets hurt or something, like it puts us in a good spot to get a title shot. And then the money loss, like that's the hardest part is, these guys, this is what their income is, and just imagine getting half your pay, feeling like you built the house right, but they're only going to give you half the money because they decided it wasn't right. And that's hard pill to swallow, especially I see how hard these guys work. Calvin worked real hard that camp. It was tough, I don't think his stock goes down. I think, if anything, I feel like he's come out of this looking like, I feel like he came out of this almost like people feel like, man, you got robbed. He was just out at International Fight Week, and everybody was like, hey, listen, like, keep at it, like, you're there, And I don't think his stock goes down. I don't think the public opinion that his stock goes down. I think people still look at him as someone that can go challenge for a title. And I think that maybe the way that the other side's handling it is probably helping us too. We're not going to sit here, we're not crying about the fact that we thought we won. We're just saying it doesn't make sense how round 4, but we're not crying about it. This is a sport, and sometimes that happens, and I think maybe they could get more with less on the other side. I think it's interesting, because I feel like I don't know, it's not like Josh's fault, but I think he's coming out of this almost like people are like getting annoyed with him, and I don't necessarily think he's doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
He went out and he fought his heart out, and he didn't make the judges choose what they chose, but I just think the reactions from the other side, it's almost like the comments that we're getting is like it's not doing them any favors.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and especially where I feel like it's, like you said, it's not his fault, and I think that it just seems like the conversation has almost swung from like, will Josh get the next title shot, to like, oh, well, who was going to get it because Josh can't be the guy. So it will be interesting to see what plays out, and I think that it speaks though to your point that this division's pretty open when you have a dominant champion. Like, a fresh matchup goes a long way, and Calvin does present that. So I guess we'll see what happens from here with him. Yeah,
I think Calvin wins that fight. He's not demanding a title shot after that fight. Calvin's going to get on the microphone and he's going to say, hey, I'm sorry, I should have done better. Whatever's next is next. Like, if that's up to the UFC. I'm going to work hard and get back in the gym. I'll focus on what I can control. And I think you get more with that approach than we wouldn't have demanded a title shot off that performance. I don't think So I think when the other side does it, I think sometimes you have to be, use a little humility and just win with grace. And I think demanding the title shot on the other side, I think maybe made it so people were like, no, like, so I don't know. Like, this is a tough sport. Josh is just trying to get what's his, and, so this is nothing negative about him. It's just the way the sport is. But I just think if the decision had gone our way, I think Calvin's a little bit more humble in his requests, and I think, in the court of public opinion, it probably goes a long way with him.
Yeah. And I'm sure, a big fight will be next anyway. That featherweight, top of the featherweight. I mean, look at the fight this weekend. Both guys are coming off losses, and it's a fantastic fight. So,
yeah.
I guess, just kind of give me the roadmap for the New England Cartel specifically from here on out. I know, we can. I'm sure we'll do like a client update interview at some point. But just Calvin, Rob, how they doing? What do we think's next?
Yeah. So Rob's already, Rob's still going through PT. He's gonna, limp through the rest of this year. He's got no restrictions technically, but we're just going to be conservative of him coming back. He had 2 tough fights in a row where, he got rocked a little bit, and we're just going to be, super safe with his comeback, and, we're going to progressively ramp up the training, still no contact or anything like that, and just like limp, walk, jog, run, and there won't be any sprint until, till the end of the year. So I'd assume that, late Q1 of next year is probably when he fights again, and obviously that's up to the UFC a little bit, but we're not in a rush to get back. I think this is a good chance for Rob to work on some things, get his health back. He's about to have a baby in December, so his life's going to get real chaotic, and he just got a puppy too, so him and Kathy are going to have a lot going on over there.
Yeah.
And then Calvin already back in the gym. Not technically, like, if this fight fell out this weekend, he probably could have jumped in.
Yeah.
Like, he was healthy enough to do that. We would have to get, just clearance for his nose or whatever. But
the usual.
Yeah, just every fight. But yeah, I think I definitely foresee Calvin fighting this fall. It's just a matter of us getting back in the gym and then letting the UFC know, like, hey, listen, this is like kind of the month we want to fight, and then we'll see who makes sense. I think he's looking at probably another really good fight, probably another main event, who knows, or like on a pay-per-view. We can't control that, but there's a bunch of hungry kids coming up behind us that maybe we have to knock off one of them again. Calvin's been doing pretty good with that, and with Ige and Giga, and so they give us these guys a win streaks, and Calvin does pretty good, and or who knows what happens this weekend, and we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I guess, like, obviously for Rob it's a ways away, so it's like trying to predict 3 steps ahead. But for Calvin, I mean, like you just mentioned, is there anybody you guys kind of like, or is it not even thinking about that yet? I mean, you got like...
No, I mean, the zombie fight's fun.
That's the one that sticks out to me.
I think, like, they're both coming off losses.
Yeah.
He's already been resting a little bit. We probably don't need as long of a rest, so I think the timeline matches up. Arnold Allen's not even worth trying to book. I feel like he's just... we've been offered him before. We accepted. We just got... It was a frustrating fight to try to book. It seems like he's always either injured or wants to go on vacation or a concert with his girlfriend, or I don't know. But, like, he called us out. We said, yes, we'll fight you in 10 weeks. And he's like, oh, that's not long enough. So, we want to fight real fighters. And I'm not saying he's not a real fighter, but if you can't be ready to fight in 10 weeks coming off a win, then, maybe you're in the wrong sport. I don't know. Like, it's frustrating. But, yeah, so we'll see. I think the zombie fight makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
I think it's a fun fight. He's a banger. Probably try to wrestle us a little bit. Calvin's showing that he's got good takedown defense, so then that means it turns into a nice Calvin Kattar fight. I think, I heard Dana this weekend say that Burgos has 4 fight of the nights in 10 fights. I think Calvin has 4 or 5. So, yeah, he is one of the most exciting fights. He's one of the most exciting fighters in the UFC, definitely in the featherweight division. So it doesn't matter who he fights; it's going to be exciting. But I think him and Zombie, I'm pretty sure Zombie's not retiring. I think maybe he was on the fence, but it seems like he's not. So I think that fight makes sense for him. We're coming off a loss. He's coming off a loss. Number 5 versus number 6 or 7, whatever it is, and go get a big win over him, and then see where it puts us. Get it better. They're just bashing everybody else's ideas that are trying to make it better. So I think collectively we all owe it to the